Yeah, it's a good morning again from Kampala, and we are here coming back to you with the Pan-African Friday, which program comes your way every other Friday of the week at this time. In the studio again, I'm joined by Ndugu Rugarama and Ndugu Andrew Irumba. Of course, these are the people you have always heard and seen here. And today we're looking at a number of similar issues that concern us, the people of Africa, both within Africa and outside of the continent. And today we'll be looking at, of course, last time, by the time we went off air, because we had the Manifesto Week. Yeah, that was coming in, so we had to give way for that program. But we were looking at the African intervention, rather, I think the African stake in the global politics, and we were looking at what would be the benefit or the advantage or the role of the African leaders in the anticipated meeting with Moscow leaders and also with Kiev. And that was what we were looking at that time, but then the program was interrupted. So my name is James Matuta, and like I said in the studio today, I'm with Ndugu Rugarama and also Ndugu Andrew Irumba, the spy. I don't know why he calls himself the spy anyway, and the council Ndugu Rugarama. So, but before we go to that, today again, I think we are coming to you about 19 minutes later after the hour when we're supposed to start. But of course, I think we're also enjoying the beautiful music from St. Cecilia Choir from Weyogerere parish in Kampala here as a precursor to the ongoing activities of Uganda Martyrs Day that will be celebrated tomorrow. And all the functions and all roads are leading to Namugongo, where all the people who subscribe to religion, especially both in the Catholic but also the Anglican. There's also the shrine for the Muslim community. So Namugongo tomorrow will be a beehive of activities as we celebrate the National Martyrs Day for Uganda. Now, for people who are following us from outside of Uganda, Martyrs Day is a day which is celebrated following in recognition of the people, the young men who apparently they were only men, I am told, who were killed because of subscribing to the religious faith. And of course, there are a number of theories about this particular killing, whether they were rebels to the kingdom of Uganda or they were being used by the external forces to destabilize the kingdom of Uganda, or they were genuine followers of Christ and didn't want to do anything with Uganda kingdom. All these theories, I think, come into play when we talk about the Uganda martyrs that were killed at Namugongo and many other sites. So, but before we get to that, I'll get to the studio, and the people here will talk to us about, normally when we start this program, we look at the critical issues that have happened or occurred on this continent of Africa, or of African interest even beyond the continent of Africa. So I will start with Ndugu Rugarama about how his week has been and how his African week particularly has been.
Good morning, comrades. This week I wish to point out the unfortunate incident in Somalia, in as far as our UPDF Garant sons and daughters are concerned. Reports came that we had lost a good number of them. The Al-Shabaab attacked and overran our, is it a garrison or
whatever? But anyway, we lost some people there, and that was
and we lost a good number,
yeah.
And armaments. That, of course, the commander-in-chief the president had something to say about the quality these days of the people, because these are not my words really, that we sent. He seemed to fault, although he said they had instituted a commission of inquiry within the army to investigate exactly what could have led to that. General Mahanga has been sent there. I think he has come back already. So really, and you see, of course, the strength of this NRM is the security. So the army, when something of that nature happens to our army, be it internally here or on a foreign mission, there is always a tendency to have the fountain of honor want to get to the bottom of this whole thing. And I think I will not go beyond that, but it is of great concern because the people who died are our own brothers and sisters. And at the same time, of course, it has a lot to do with how UPDF, the reputation that it has built over time. Not that it has gone away, but there is a check. And usually that happens when you have stayed in on a mission for some time. Then finally, there has been this Uganda Martyrs, the pilgrims coming from all over the world. And unfortunately, we also had an incident about a day or two where we lost two. A bus rammed into the pedestrians from Masaka. They had actually almost reached here in Kampala. But what is of great importance in as far as the matters is concerned, and I believe we shall have something to say about it, is that I think we need to package better. Because when you look at the maker that we have and those who move there, and the kind of industry that the United Arab Emirates has carved from the visitors, those who go to have the blessings from Allah, it is unbelievable. And at the same time, when you look at how Israel with all the kind of atrocities that she keeps to commit against the Palestinians, but the way she is strategizing herself over time, making diplomatic overtures throughout the world, increasing the embassy presence globally, making sure that they turn Jerusalem into another Mecca of some sorts, and they are cashing in. So I think we can take this opportunity, and Egesa was supporting this position, being the tourist guru that he is, that we can cash in. We should go beyond the amazing songs that we do sing, and we now look at it, yes, from the religious perspective that it has been constructed to be, although there is that political angle, but we should also use it to also tap into the business angle as well.
Yeah, but even the political angle has no problem, because for me, I believe that it brings in the diverse ideas that people, those who believe, the Christians who believe that these were martyrs because they were persecuted by the authority that there was. But also, the diehards of the kingdom could also have a different dimension to that.
The truth of the matter, Ndugu Mtuta and our dear viewers, and of course, this is trying to balance a very delicate state, in the sense that, and I would just make a simple statement, because we are just wrapping up our week, the opportunity you have given us. I want to think that we shall go into it. Maybe you will allocate time when we go into it. My view here is that, truth be told, Kabaka Mwanga then had a kingdom to keep, had a people, a population to govern. And for heaven's sake, we are not talking about a democracy or, for that matter, a kind of political arrangement that had these diplomatic and democratic, so-called democratic principles and practices. We are talking about a monarchy with absolute power vested in the hands of a king who was a spiritual leader, who was a political leader, and who was, in a manner of speaking, also a summation where all the spiritual values would be would go through. Now, in that particular sense, we are also confronted with a white man who comes, and his initial target is the pegs. And these pegs were a special breed of young men, disciplined, hardworking, that would be donated to the kingdom for purposes of helping out the king to run the kingdom. And they begin converting and making sure that they have that population of the young men, the Barikudembes, the Bazeketas, the Nuwa Mawagale, and many others. And of course, you see, again, when we go into the depths of this, you will realize that the majority of the names that are talked about are mainly of the Catholic incarnation. But in actual sense, actually the biggest number of martyrs were Muslims, followed by the Anglican. And the list is supposed to be, because those ones of so-called natives, what they call if you want, some have called them natives, or maybe the pagans. I don't know even what that means, because there is no such a thing as a pagan. People have got different avenues through which they worship God. But anyway, the point I'm making here is that here we have got an absolute monarch, a king who was everything, and the pegs, who were a special breed of young men donated to him to help him run the kingdom, being converted and showed that there is a superior power. And the Kawaka didn't know about this superior power. What else would you call it if it is not a rebellion? And he was warned, sufficiently warned, because he had his wise men. If you want to call them witches, that is your business, but they were wise men who would counsel him, to tell him that there is a problem. He would go fishing, he would go hunting, and he lost his gun in the waters. And that was a bad omen. So his consultant, whom the Christians call a witch doctor, said that is bad omen. It is coming from these boys. And the whites that are converting and the boys. Even when he was tolerant enough to say, call these boys and I ask them, I will give them a second chance, they arrogantly stood before him and said for them they were ready to die, and there is nothing that is going to change that. And indeed, it is even said that some, like Gonzaga, when he reached in Kamuli, as you are moving to Namugongo, he said, but what is the big deal? You can as well kill me from here. I have got, after all, you are even going to... So that level of arrogance and impudence, if you like, Matia Murumba, when he reached here in Old Kampala, more or less said the same thing. There was even a young Rugarama, where my name is derived, here who's about 13 years. Actually, the youngest martyr is even not Chistomuto, who was basically like 15, 14. There was this young Rugarama, you can imagine, a 12 and a half to 13-year-old standing against the political power of the Kawaka. He was just martyred here in Natete, you know. So you can see that there was a growing political rebellion against the kingdom, and the kingdom was in trouble. A statement had to be made. Who wouldn't make such a statement?
So, in other words, we also have to look at the other side, that that brainwashing one could think it was a brainwashing of these young kids. Look at the ages, it could have been as possible but
the
also,
oldest was actually not beyond 25.
Yes, but also that strong faith, according to the Christian, was also the beginning of a bigger problem. But also, you look at it that this comes at the backdrop of the conflicts that existed between these religious groups as they kept fighting one another. And of course, it continued from there, including the overthrow of the kings and then replacement of the kings. So I think it is also important, while we are celebrating the martyrs, to look at, and of course that has also become part of the history of Uganda. But like you did mention, I think the packaging needs to be addressed.
You see, even my last statement on that, before my brother Comrade Wumba comes in, my last statement on that in this kind of opening remarks is that I absolutely have got no problem with the people's faith, people's way of interacting with their God. I have no problem with it. My problem is to think that your way of interacting with your God is superior to mine. That's where the problem is. For you to think, because this is basically what the white man did, that for us we had an inferior God or no God at all. And that by adopting and worshipping the God he brought to us, whom he has since abandoned, by the way, the white man has since abandoned the God he branded, packaged, and exported to us without adding or deducting anything. How? What do I mean? That the white man brought a God who had to be worshipped as under the tenets and wrappings of the Roman Catholic faith. None of us is Roman. I'm not Roman. Even those who prescribe to the Roman Catholic faith, they are not Romans. But the Italian and those who were in that category brought this God to us in the colors of Roman Catholic. The Germans brought our God to us, whom we so much believe in, as a Lutheran. And the Anglicans, the English for that matter, after disagreeing with the Romans on the way they were interacting with the God, they packaged their own God and brought him as an Anglican. Churches in London now are empty. Those who believe in the very God they brought to us so many years ago have since abandoned him. So your grandchildren. My take, therefore, is that when you look, the question now comes, was this particular God a really genuine God that was brought to us for purposes of nourishing and transforming us spiritually to be able to interact and become better human beings? Or it was a means, as can be seen in Poor Christophe Bomba by Mongo Betty, it was a means of making sure that we are battered, cleansed, showed the way of allowing the colonialist to manipulate an already battered mind, subdued for purposes of enriching and enabling colonialism.
Yeah, because last time when we were looking at it, we also said that maybe the God that the colonialists brought was not the right God. Because this is the same God that has changed positions from time and again. They are the same people who taught us A, B, C, D, but the same, one last time, when this bill was before Parliament here, people were saying, but it is the same Anglican Church and the Catholic Church that came and taught us that marrying more than one wife was satanic. And we did obey. Although much as not a lot was addressed from the Bible. And then the same group that came and told us now are now telling us that you can now marry a man. And we are saying no, because that's not even the Bible is open about that. So is this same God changing positions to fit the colonialists' agenda, or it is the same God that we knew that the God who does not change? But I think that will be a discussion for another day. Ndugu Irumba, Namugongo, are you going?
Are you going? Well, let me first introduce myself very well. My name is Andrew Irumba Katusave Ateny. I am the founding speaker and chairman of the Pan-African Pyramid.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, I'm a journalist. I work with the SPY Uganda.
That's what I'm saying,
and
the
Detective
SPY.
Uganda. I am the CEO. Now, you asked me whether I am going to Namugongo or not tomorrow. If you're watching us, I want you to get your Bible. When you get your Bible, you go to Romans. When you go to Romans, you go to chapter 13. When you go to chapter 13, you read verse 1 to 7. And I'm going to read with you as you get your Bible. This is the Bible the Whitman came with here.
Which version is that?
I'm sure it's a New King Version.
Let me first read for you the message. Everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves.
So you are saying?
Therefore, rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of one in authority? Then do what is right, and he will commend you. For he is God's servant to do you good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he doesn't bear the sword for nothing. He is God's servant and an agent of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also because of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing. Give everyone what you owe him. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenues, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If you honor, if it is the honor, then honor. I'm a free thinker. I don't actually believe that what we are celebrating tomorrow, 3rd June, those are matters. The same Bible that is telling you people who rebelled against the authority of the day should now turn into matters is the same religion that tells you to obey the local authorities.
But you also saw the disciples of Jesus rebelling against authority.
So I am a free thinker who thinks that the manipulative schemes of the white man who came here with the Bible and exchanged with the African, with their land and all resources, is the same man now who is changing and saying, these were killed because of our religion that we brought to Africa. Therefore now turn and call them martyrs. That is completely contradictory. Kabaka Mwanga was the authority at that time, appointed by God, as the Bible says. If you rebelled against Kabaka Mwanga of that time and obeyed the religion that was being brought by the missionaries, what did you expect? Obviously, you will be killed.
Yeah, because of
when you get killed, I do not think that you are a martyr. You are a rebel. So what we are celebrating tomorrow, those are rebels. And I'm glad this morning as I was coming, Comrade Ugab, you know the family of Mukajanga, I've just heard them. They are demanding to be recognized because Mukajanga was effecting his leader's
duties of the
instructions. So he's actually, they're saying he's don't to actually be called a martyr. He was submissive.
He was cleansing.
He was enforcing his master's orders. And so you cannot castigate him. Instead, he should be the one to be called a martyr. Number two, it is Mukajanga who made you what you are now celebrating. If you are correct, it is Mukajanga who made you to be those, to be martyrs. So the family, I've just heard this morning, somebody called me as I was coming. The family is actually demanding for special recognition. They should even get dividends from your revenues that you're getting. So, comrade, in 1885 to 1887, the Uganda Martyrs that were killed in total 45 by Mukajanga on the orders of Kabaka Mwanga, I think, in my opinion, they deserved it. I even had some people, Mukajanga would ask them, who are you? Buza Baliao. The king is asking you to explain who you are, and you're saying, Buza Baliao. Another one said, Bazeketa. Your name is Bazeketa. You have come to you have come to spy on me as a king. Whom have you come to spy me on behalf of? On behalf of the white man who has brought the religion. I'm the king. And do you think you will go back with your life? Buza Baliao.
Mawagali.
I'm told Mukajanga also lost a son.
Mawagali.
No, actually, Mukajanga, just information, Mukajanga, in all that episode, he had his auntie's son, the name again will come. And he tried, he actually smuggled that very son to the other part of Namugongo,
Kira.
No. The other end, Buate, around Buate.
Chanja there.
Chanja. You smuggled that son there. Then the mother wept and said, please don't. And the son stood before the mother and said, me, actually, I want to be taken back and I want to die because I'm dying for the right cause. And Mukajanga had no option. He took the boy back and in order not to see the pain of his relative, blood relative, they first hit the young man. They hit him on the head and they burnt him when he was already dead. But others were burnt when they were looking.
Okay. So, now, before you come in, now that was my point number one. Point number two, my brother. I want you to look at the ages of the people we call martyrs today.
Vulnerable.
Did they really, in their own thinking, if you had allowed them to think freely, did they really know why they were killed? Or they were simply trained and coached and say, when he asks you before them, when the king asks you, you say like this. So the motives of the elderly people who were training these children are supposed to be charged. How would you say someone has died for a cause at the age of 12, the age of 8, the age of 15? Those are not free thinkers. Today in the army, if you recruit somebody, a kadogo, in the army, you're supposed to be charged. Because you are recruiting a person who cannot think independently.
Minor.
So you are saying these minors didn't
you
have
cannot
the
call them
capacity.
martyrs for, did they even understand what they are dying for? These are, they hoodwinked them. If they were alive today, would they die for this religion? Would they? The case would be different.
The contradiction, Undugu Mututa, a contradiction where we are coming from. And you see, I started by telling their audience that my problem has never been with how one interacts with his God or her God. No, that's not my problem. Yeah. My problem has been, and will continue to be, the superiority complex exposed by some groups in a manner in which for them they worship, thinking that they can impose it on others as a superior way of doing things. And we have got a whole litany of examples where Christianity, when it set foot on the African continent, all our practices were done away with. Because if you, like we have shared constantly with my senior brother, Joshua Maponga, the Christianity was brought in full package wholesale, and they never cared how African society was interacting with their God. They brought the entire package and they imposed it upon us such that it could be replicated the way they brought it, and that's how it has kept to be. And that was the first stage, and I think even the last stage, of the death of our own organic cultural way of interacting with our own God. Now, what does that do? What that has done is that even in our celebration of the martyrs, for instance, because I have told you that there were more than 100 Muslim martyrs, but do you see any celebration of the Muslims? Why? Because the politics within the religion have it that there cannot be any other center of influence for Muslims apart from Mecca and Medina. You get where I'm coming from and where I'm going? Now, when you put such a memorial site in Uganda here, you are likely, other people are likely to start now turning the 100+ members who died here in Namugongo, Muslim orientation, to compare them with the
Medina and Mecca.
The Muhammad who died in Mecca. Now, that is one. Then two, when you look at the way we celebrate our Uganda Martyrs here, even in Uganda, you will find that, for instance, the Anglicans are Johnny come lately. And yet, the number that died is much more than that one of them, at least the official number. Because there could have been others that are not recorded. But you see, when you go to, this is a matter that should be taken up and by the joint Christian Council, that council that brings together all the interreligious council. Because when you go to the museum, it is the Uganda Martyrs Museum, which actually is at the very center where the execution was taking place. That Nachiyanja you see, the river which is there, it is the very river after executing, they would wash the sword. And it is not that it started with the martyrs. Historically speaking, the Uganda kingdom, all the rebellious people within Uganda would be taken to Namugongo.
Including princes and princesses.
And they would be taken there, majority of them being dragged on their backs. Namugongo, Omugongo, from the Uganda word. So, if the Uganda Martyrs Museum, for instance, is only showing you the Anglican martyrs, you see, do you see the religious politics there?
But there were other rebels who could have been
I'm telling you, there are other rebels that also should be put in that museum. When you look at, when you come to the Catholic...
Maybe they are not documented.
No, they are all documented. The history is there.
Deliberate.
Where am I getting it from?
It's deliberate.
When you go to the Catholic shrine, you should go there, by the way. Not that...
I've been there.
Thank you very much. How many martyrs are you going to find there? The 22 martyrs. The Nuwas Mawagari were talking about.
But Rugarama is not there.
Absolutely, you cannot get Rugarama there or any other. So finally on that, the point I'm really making here, our dear audience and my dear colleagues here in the studio, is that even at the level where the martyrs are supposed to be uniting us, and we're supposed to be kind of telling this history of the Uganda Martyrs, or the political rebels, if you like, from where you are coming from, is supposed to be a rallying force, a factor. We tell the correct history, we give credit where it is due. Now that if we can get from these political rebels, as far as the politics is concerned of Uganda at that time, turned into Uganda Martyrs, let's have the correct history and uniformity, that we can have all these matters documented. We celebrate jointly their martyrhood, but also it provides very good learning examples, and we take advantage from that to start now benefiting economically, socially, and otherwise. But this business of saying that it is 3rd June and all of us are going to Uganda Martyrs, we create a lake, that is not the lake that, that is a man-made lake.
Yeah, but
the original lake or river is down there, Nachianja. That is the river, if we were to go by the historical facts.
Yeah, but maybe it is symbolism, because you talked about Israel. When it comes to this kind of packaging and marketing, they have done it well, not so much well because of their conflicts with their neighbors. But you realize that the most part I liked, of course, when you go to where Jesus is buried, where Golgotha, and you may not understand it very well because of the commercialization that has over time taken over. They tell you this is the tomb of Jesus, but it's in a 3rd or 4th floor up in the building. Then they're telling you this is where he was
buried.
He was buried.
Was that building there when he was buried?
So there's a lot of distortions, even as you go there today. But I think for us, we can do it better if we, for purposes of tourism, but also that heritage as the Christians of this country. I think there can be a better way. When I went to the Holocaust library of the Jews, you get that, you know, there is this feeling that you feel the pain. You feel that something must be done. The art that has been presented, there's this place completely dark with some faint lights in the glasses, especially in the area where children, they say this is where the children, the memorial for the children who were killed during the Holocaust. So I think we just also need to use a few things that can make Namugongo more sellable, and it can be sold, because if it is a religion that we are marketing, so be it. The political angle can also be marketed. I think Uganda Kingdom can also come up with its version, so that the Mwanga is not seen as a villain, but rather also a person, a responsible king who was protecting his kingdom,
his territory,
and his people. And any leader of that time would do that, or even worse than what he did, because for them they killed the rebels. They didn't extend the punishment to the families, because that could have also been the other thing, but the king didn't do that. So I think we'll have one time a discussion about these religious issues, whether that would be taken lightly as it is handled today, or there is something bigger than that. In other words, what was the background to these children? How was the instructions? How were they being taught to be able to come to this hardness of the mind? I think that, like I said, why were elders who are the instructors who are teaching them not also killed? Because that's the other question that we could ask. But I think all done and said that a history was created especially for this country, and we are not about to go away from that. And the lessons that we have learned there are good enough to inspire us. Does that also have something to do in terms of brainwashing with what we are seeing now happen in Kenya, where people are starving to heaven?
We are not far away, and this is, I think, where my brother Irumba was going to. Probably let me say this, and we get over with it. The truth of the matter is that what was happening, in my opinion, what was happening then in Kabaka Mwanga's palace with the missionaries, who were, of course, the front runners of colonialists, is not so different from what we are having in some pockets, especially with all due respect to the Pentecostal movement. Now, the Pentecostal movement has been infiltrated. There are certainly those who are clear about the Word of God. Now, you can have an argument about the Word of God, even the Bible itself, by the way. You can try to bring in your knowledge to intellectualize what is contained in the Holy Book. And of course, as a way of intimidating us and many people out there, they will tell you that you have no business discussing the Bible. That's the Word of God. It is as it is. But some people will give themselves the responsibility of the interpreters to be able to interpret for you. I know, for instance, of some dominations here on the African continent that we are not allowing their faithfuls to read the Bible. They were the ones who would read and they would extract what was necessary for the audience or the faithfuls, and then they would write it in given books. The faithfuls would only read what was prepared by those people who it was expected that they had the intellectual ability to deduce from the Bible what was necessary. Now, that is a risk for disaster. And that is how the Pentecostal movement, some pockets within the Pentecostal movement, have come up to have absolute ability, absolute power, that they are the ones who can read, understand the Bible, and then they tell you what is contained in the Bible. That's how they have misinterpreted the Bible, and they have led all the atrocities that, for instance, you are pointing out. You remember very well, for us who are in Uganda, there was the issue of Chibwetere. You can imagine the Mwerindes, the Chibweteres. It is even said that Chibwetere, who was a father, a reverend father, and Mwerinde, who was also a sister, that they were husband. I mean a man, and when they were going for doing adult duties. But at the same time, the other group of people who were well above the ages of the Rugaramas, we are talking about matters, the Nuwa, Mawagaris, and etc., were convinced into believing that they can keep themselves indoors, carry out any economic activity, go and sell everything they had at home, come and die. No, actually not die. We'll just naturally transit
to heaven.
To heaven. Now you can imagine that adults expected to be of sound mind could be convinced to behave in such a manner, and all of them died. And that it eroded the intelligence network of our NRM here. That also is a very worrying factor. Now, it has not only happened in Uganda. We have had, and even what happened in Kenya, by the way, recently, is not the first thing that it has happened. It has happened there. In as far as people dying in the name of a God they do not understand. Now, that is tragic. People will come and tell you all sorts of stories, especially those who want to justify their current faith orientation. They will tell you all sorts of things to make sure somebody will even have an argument that your way of interacting with God as an Anglican or Roman Catholic is wrong simply because you do it on a day which is a Sunday, and that is not in the Bible. So we create another religion called the Seventh-day Adventist. Now, the matters we are discussing here, Ndugu Mututa and our dear audience, I know are very delicate. And I told you right from the start that we are trying to balance a delicate tilt. A delicate tilt in the sense that we have got, and I respect their opinions, we have got professors, highly educated people, 3 to 1, 4 degrees, scholarly people, people who are not weekend thinkers, but something called religion is something else. So when the white man made sure that he captured the black man on that angle. Because you will ask yourself, if for instance it is a religion and Christianity for that matter that is being Roman Catholic, being Anglican, that is actually going to take us to heaven, and the Japanese are not Christians, but they are arguably the most prosperous, industrious, innovative people. The Chinese, the Koreans, the Indians. If, for instance, we are saying that it is Christianity and not Islam, majority of the Islamic countries are very shrewd in doing business, and I can not say that, for instance, Africans, we die at a very young age. I don't know if by being Christians, which is as per those who want to tell us that it is Christianity that is strictly accepted in the eyes of God, why should God be calling us at such an early age? Is it because he's, like the president has already said, he's a lonely man?
The only issue also is that and I think one time we had wanted to call these guys here to come and we discuss this issue at length. The issue of Christianity and the religion. When we Africans had our own religions, different communities were worshipping their God differently, addressing their issues differently, their disputes handled differently, and then the Christian comes in. Now, is this if we were to be Christians, so let us be. And
that is the problem. Let me tell you that actually we are lukewarm Christians. The majority of the Christians, well, with all due respect, you see, when you are caged because of public opinion, that how are people who are listening to and viewing this Rugarama going to take him? With the moment you get into those chains, you are not free to be able to carry out an intelligent debate. The truth of the matter, and people out there know, that we have got extremely very limited numbers of people who you can say are practicing Christianity in its true sense. Because even the people who actually brought it to us, they have since abandoned it.
Yeah, because
even where Jesus is rumored to have come from, they don't even respect him. Let me tell you that there is no Christianity you have been to Israel. You have been to Israel. I know it for a fact. What did you find there? Judaism. Is Judaism Christianity?
No.
Isn't the Jesus whom we say is the Son of God, that in fact death and resurrection creates Christianity? Does it not come from the Israel?
When you are in Israel, I got a terrifying experience. You are standing here, that wall where they hit their heads and pray. And above the wall, there is the mount of where the church, don't know where the Solomon built the temple, and now that temple is being occupied. It is actually it is being turned into a mosque. That's the most painful fact.
You see.
So I was asking this guy on the Temple Mount, where the temple stands. I was asking the guide said, now, where did Jesus worship from? Then told me, so you are talking even about the wrong person. I'm like, why? I said, we don't believe that Jesus was our Messiah. I said, why? He said, because look, that place, the most holy place, is standing in the hands of people you would call pagans. And then he said, if indeed Jesus was our Savior, why could we be having a holy place outside of Israel? Because now I think it's a joint board that manages it from Jordan, from the other place. It's jointly. And you know, remember last time when the minister of Israel worked there was a problem, and it almost caused another big conflict. But all said and done, of course, the woman was telling me that man was here, performed a number of miracles, but then he was kicked out. That was her word. So this man was kicked out because there were things that we are not believing. Now they're talking about Jesus, and this is the same Jesus that we elsewhere believe. Or might just see the Bible that he will lose that popularity back at home. But what we are looking at is how far did this religion now move, this Christianity rather, from Israel into London, and then Italy, then now America. Now, when you hear this religion is now bouncing back from those places where they have been manufactured, then you can expect more in terms of danger than what we are witnessing today. So what then would bring us to understand the gravity, later on the gravity, but the reality that we are believing? Could we now rely on the scriptures that we are reading? But we cannot rely on the scriptures if everyone is reading. You have really put it, that some people are not allowed to read the scriptures. I'm sure even the Quran, by the way, it is now that people have gone to school and more are able to read. But in the past, it was not possible. It was only Mualim who would read the Quran for the others to listen. So African problems is the major problem that we're having in terms of religion is also the literacy levels. And that, if it's addressed and we can be able to read and understand the scriptures, then we shall be able maybe to argue from the point of understanding. We are coming back after this break, and we shall continue looking at some of these issues. We shall also give you a number. You can give us some information or some of what you understand about the issues that we are looking at. So please don't go away. We shall be back briefly after this break. Thank you.
Mwami Musoke, njose nekusanga.
Ate chichi.
Munange, anti gwa manyo kunyinyonyola ebintu by'emisolo bino n'embitegeera.
Ate chichi leero.
Mbadde ku dduuka n'empulira nga abakyala bagamba mbu tulina okwewandiisa mu nkola ya IFRIS.
Tukikolanga.
Ate nkimbadde
kituufu nnyo.
Mbadde sikimanyi na kiki.
Eyo y'enkola egenda okutuyamba okulwaninga bizinesi zaffe mu ngeri ya digital.
Etya.
Oba olina okuwandiisa bizinesi yo mu IFRIS, osobola okumanya omuwendo gw'ebintu by'olina mu bizinesi yo, enfulumya n'ennyingiza mu bizinesi yo. Awo URA esobola okukola omulimu gwayo ogw'emisolo obulungi.
Nedda Mwami Musoke kyesitegeera. IFRIS eyingira etya mu bizinesi yange?
Kakati enkola ne IFRIS eyingiza bizinesi yo mu sisitemu ya URA, kubanga tekyali kya buntu bulamu okugerekera omusolo ogutali mutuufu abateebereza buteebereza.
Ekyo kituufu ddala bannange, ekyo kituufu. Kubanga mazima obadde omusolo gubadde gwapaala bupaazi. Ng'ogenda n'osasula omusolo gw'otomanyiiko omutwe n'amagulu. Kwegamba bambi nga tekiriiyo.
Olaba? Kakati ate n'ekirala. IFRIS eyamba okukuuma ebiwandiiko bya bizinesi yo. Kuba biyinza okubulako, biyinza okukwata omuliro. Naye kati wano IFRIS biba biri digitalized.
Bannange nenkola ntya okwewandiisa?
Kyangu nnyo, waludde dda. Okwewandiisa mu nkola ya IFRIS, genda ku kibanja kya URA, www.ura.go.ug. Awo olondeko e-invoicing. Awo no ugoberere endagiriro. URA, tukulaakulanyize wamu Uganda.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or gift.
Get freaky too! Dial *100 *10# to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial *100 *10#. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial *100 *10# to get started.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
The Magical Egypt Tour 2023 is here. A heavenly miracle waiting across the natural and divine attractions of Egypt, such as Cairo, Giza Pyramids, Saqqara, Memphis, and many more that will offer the gift of a lifetime. The chance to unlock all of the hidden powers of mind and soul, gain the enlightenment of the past and the future, and develop the power of healing. Departure will be Friday 16th up to 23rd June 2023. Basic package starting at $1,200, 8 days and 7 nights. To register, come to Gotove Tours and Travel at Nalkwego Complex Suta, UG's Extender, George Street, Nakasero, or call +256 758 530 059 or +256 784 568 392 or WhatsApp +256 782 556 078. Only few slots are left. Powered by UBC Television.
Yeah, welcome back from that break. In the Gurugarama, one person is saying here that, but where were disciples having English names, Matthew and others, yet they were not of English origin? Of course, that's a discussion for another. This guy is from, regards to Nduguru Garama, from, where is this? Nduguru Garama from Mujinya, something like that. I think he knows you personally, and of course there are many others that we'll pick later on. But let's move on the issue that we wanted to look at today. The issue of Africa's position in the global politics. A lot has happened, and as we speak today, the ICGLR is taking, the summit is taking place in Angola to discuss the issues of the DRC, the security situation in the DRC, especially in the Eastern Congo, but also look at the issue of Sudan. And the leaders, the heads of state that are attending that meeting are supposed to come up with an agreement on the way forward for the peace in the DRC. Apparently, the number of issues already, when President Tshisekedi was in Botswana, was saying that the East African force was collaborating, actually, that's the word he used, with the M23. And he believes that the regional force that was formed following the agreement in Nairobi is not doing much to fight the M23, and that that force must be removed and replaced by the force from IGAD. To me, that is a bit dicey area, and I hope he succeeds in that. But these multiple deployments, because the presidents who are in Burundi about a month ago were saying that this force, the East African force, should be extended for another 6 months. The president of DRC seemed not to buy that line because he believes that that force is not doing much in fighting the M23, and to the extent that they are more or less talking. Because I think the force, the plan was to engage the M23 in dialogue so that there could be a lasting solution. Tshisekedi believes that there must be force on the M23. Of course, we have other fighting groups like the number of forces that are in that area, because most of the fighting groups are in this area where a number of atrocities have been committed. So we hope Rwanda will come up with a solution to that. But besides that, we're now having this issue of African leaders, I think 5 of them, who supposed to meet with the president of Russia, but also the president of Ukraine. Last time we had started talking about this issue before we broke off for the manifesto week. And we were wondering and asking questions, is this going to be a successful mission for the African leaders in bringing these two warring countries together, or it is just one of, and of course the other question is, why is this not sanctioned by the African Union so that it can have more leverage in terms of respect? So, Ndugu Rugarama, by the time we left the other week, because last week we had something which was being broadcast live, we were not here, we were looking at that. I wanted to pick from there, and we examined the situation. Do you think this is going to add up to the African recognition in terms of contribution to the peace in the rest of the world, or it is just because Africans are friends of Russia?
Thank you so much once again, comrade. I remember indeed when we broke off, my take was and still is that conventionally speaking, the mediator is somebody that is agreed upon by the two parties. The parties that are in need of mediation are the ones who can say we are comfortable with this mediation team. Now, if conventionally speaking, Russia and Ukraine are agreeable to DRC, South Africa, Uganda, Zambia, and the other colleagues, they are about 6 countries.
Yeah, 5.
5?
Yeah, 5, yeah.
Okay. Can mediate us? Well and good. The only challenge which I see is that is the war between Russia and Ukraine. Actually, typically speaking, a war between those two countries. Russia, yes, I can agree. But Ukraine, I think somebody is using Ukraine as a ground for aggression. In my opinion, this is a war of aggression by NATO forces. UK, America to start with, plus all her cousins who form NATO.
America's cousins.
Yes, those cousins of America who form NATO that wanted to carry out aggression in the backyard of Russia by turning Ukraine into a territory or fortify Ukraine, making sure that they keep in a geographically short distance away from Russia to check on the superior power of Russia. So much that if they could, they would build anti-missiles, and Russia would not be able to launch long-range and other military capabilities using her territory, of course, Russia is, I think, arguably the largest mass country.
But they are not the ones that they are not the ones that told Russia to invade Ukraine.
Who?
The cousins.
No, this is the argument, and this is where I think majority of our people lose the argument. The argument is this, that Russia, even in describing entering Ukraine, they called it a special operation. For a very long time, this is what was happening. There was the presence of the leader, the president, before the current president of Ukraine, Zelensky. Before the Zelensky, the leader who was, you know, after the breakup of United States of USSR, then these other small countries came into existence, and Ukraine is not a small country, geographically speaking. The president of Ukraine, before the advent of Zelensky, was, if you like, pro-Russia. The activities of the American ambassador in Ukraine brought down the presidency of the president who was pro-Russia. During the USSR, Russia had built a lot of military installations, including even pipelines, by the way, in Ukraine. There was so much investment in Ukraine because Ukraine was part and parcel of Russia, or USSR, if you like. Like they choose Belarus of the same. Now, later, after the American, and this has been happening, because when you look at the majority of what we call declassified information, you will find that United States of America has over time, using the diplomatic missions, turned into spying networks, brought down governments. So it is not new that the American ambassador, like we had the American ambassador in South Africa, saying that he has it on good authority that the ship was loading armaments from South Africa going to Russia. Now, I like the explanation of the of the General Secretary of ANC. He says, first of all, and even Mbeki, by the way, the former president, came to say, but first of all, for us, it is known that we do not have the capability, we don't manufacture the arms. What sort of arms were being loaded from South Africa to Russia to start with? Secondly, it is also on good authority, we have it on good authority, that South Africa is a member of BRICS along with Russia. And we have been having military or joint military exercises. So it is not out of the ordinary that we could be seen together in military engagements. Secondly, the kind of weapons so far used by Russia in Ukraine are nowhere in the capabilities of the South Africa. To go back to my point, the truth of the matter is that systematically, America has been wanting to check on the power. They wanted to use which is the other small island that was taken over by Russia.
Is it Penny?
No, the Crimea.
Crimea.
Yes, the Crimea. And Russia rushed and annexed and carried out a referendum, and it was carved into and called, has since become part of Russia. Ukraine...
But that's an act of aggression.
But you see, we are talking about act of aggression, and I'm not exonerating Russia. But I'm only telling you that it is catastrophic, and at the same time, it is also laughable that a pot can call a kettle of being black when we know that the pot is equally black. Now, if we are talking about acts of aggression, you can actually even forgive Russia, because we know the biggest global aggressor we know. That one is known. And how many aggressions they have. It is America, it is known. And we know whom she has aggressed. We know the number of governments they have brought down, either conventionally or unconventionally.
Now, when we look back at the countries that are participating in this peace initiative, you are looking at Zambia, DRC, we are looking at Uganda, we are looking at Senegal, we are looking at Egypt, and of course South Africa, to crown it all. Now, the question is rather, why is this not an effort of Africa? Why is it an act of individuals who are friends of
I actually
Russia?
was coming to that. I think, in my opinion, that this had a lot to do with South Africa. South Africa, being a member of BRICS, and the kind of accusations that have been leveled against her, especially by America. And when America, of course, levels accusations against you, you know that all her cousins are also going to play a ball. It's like when you are sanctioned by America. All those other countries, even when they have got no reasons, Britain, etc., even when it's just France this, recently, and some other countries, especially with sanctioning of, say, Cuba, that have come up and they are dragging their feet. They are saying, but we don't have good reasons, really, as to why we should be again sanctioning Cuba. It is not necessary. But you remember when they sanctioned, during Trump's time, when they sanctioned Venezuela, these other countries also came along and they did the same thing. But the point I'm making here is, in as far as your question is concerned, South Africa being a very good friend of Russia, and being a member of the BRICS, and what could have happened is that South Africa called upon other members, especially, you remember the voting patterns. If you go back to the voting patterns, the UN resolution condemning the invasion, the so-called invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And those majority of those countries you are talking about, and look at how they voted. You see, that should give you a picture.
Egypt voted against. Senegal, I think, abstained. So
what does that tell you? The point I'm making there is that when you look even at the voting patterns, there is a sense in which, like South Africa, of course, abstained. There is a sense in which South Africa called upon these other friends to say, let me not be seen to be doing it alone. Can you accompany me? So Russia is actually agreeable to these members mediating. We are only looking at the bigger picture, that Ukraine may be also agreeable. I can tell you that His Excellency, the President of Ukraine, Zelensky, knows very well that he is not going to, even when he was invited recently to go and start shopping for support in these other NATO member countries. He knows that there is no way his country is going to win this. Militarily, never. It cannot happen. But simply because he's not the one in charge, he never started this war to start with, only that he's being naive, and this is being naive, by the way, is not an insulting word. No, we are all naive in different categories and different formats. So him being a little bit naive in political arena, he didn't know that he was being used by superpowers and NATO force as such. Therefore, the mediation efforts of the 5 member countries from Africa may not yield fruits, at least not in the immediate.
That's what Tagal said, that
yes.
There's nothing we expect.
No, at least not in the immediate, simply because it is mediating, these countries are mediating the parties where one party may be willing and can listen, but the other party is actually absent. Because Zelensky and Ukraine are not a party. The party is America, and America is not on the table.
But at the same time, Ndogo Irumba, when you look at countries like Senegal, I think yesterday, this guy has been is on suspended case, but also yesterday I think the court ruled that he's supposed to be arrested to serve again in a case where he has been accused of the opposition leader Sonko of Senegal has been accused. This time, the other time was rape, that he raped a woman who was working in a parlor. Sometimes, you know, the other man who said it is very difficult to be a virgin when you are working in a brothel. But this time that he raped a girl who was working in a salon, in a parlor, in a salon parlor. Now that judge was dropped and has now been charged with corrupting the youth, whatever that means also. But this is also the same man of Senegal, President Sall, who has been called to be one of the mediators in that case. And back his country home, he's having issues. Do you think that could also be part of many other African countries that could pull them down from engaging in some of these high profile?
Let us not, for fear of being diversionary, I want to stick and begin from my comrade Garama. I don't want our viewers to get diverted now to start analyzing the individual capacities in championing the negotiations. Because if we go to start analyzing everybody's individual capabilities, we may miss the point. So this is my submission. Number one, Comrade Mututa, you must first build the capacity as a continent that you can actually midwife peace between Russia and Ukraine, beginning from home. Comrade Mututa and Rugarama, Africa itself is at war. Yeah?
Yes.
Uganda and Rwanda closed their border for more than 4 years. You get it? Our neighbor DRC and Rwanda cannot even have a cup of coffee together. Rwanda and Burundi cannot even sit on the same table. Yeah? When you look at what is happening in DRC, look at what's happening between DRC and Rwanda and Burundi, look at what is happening in Somalia, it gives somebody afar an impression that you're not capable of even bringing your own house together. Yeah? And now you want to mediate between two powerful countries, especially Russia. And when you're mediating a war between Russia and Ukraine, behind the Ukraine, there is America and NATO. Now, those are superpowers. And those are the ones, when you're mediating between Russia and Ukraine, you should actually reflect that you are trying to mediate between Russia and America and NATO. Where do you stand? Where is your position? In what conflicts have you resolved in Africa? You, the 5 countries. When now also go internally in their respective countries, and there are conflicts in your own respective countries that you have actually failed to resolve. Look at Uganda. There are internal contradictions that you have failed to resolve. Just recently, when the Ugandan soldiers were killed in Somalia, look at the contradictions just emerging from within the army. The commander-in-chief pinching holes in the deployment. The commander-in-chief is actually telling the world that the people who were deployed in Somalia are half-baked. Do you see that? You are the commander-in-chief, but the land forces, the person in charge of deployments, did not consult you, and you did not even agree on what type of capabilities the deployed forces in Somalia must have.
Yeah, maybe the capacities were there, but the operation...
Yeah, now it means Uganda has been in Somalia for how long?
16
years. You have never sat on a table to assess what are the capabilities of the people you are deploying there. So you have your own internal contradictions. Now, that also brings in AU, African Union. I would understand, Comrade Rugarama and Mututa, if the initiatives of negotiating, bringing to table Ukraine and Russia was initiated by AU, now AU would be a representation of the entire continent. But what are they doing? Sleeping. They're sleeping. We have 55 countries of Africa. Only 5 countries are saying we can negotiate and speak between the two. I know for a fact that Russia and Ukraine have simply accepted to say, okay, let us see what you can do. But at the back of their mind, they know you cannot do anything. They know. Even America will not allow these 5 countries to take the day. How would America be seen? America, who has sent UN forces, they call themselves peacekeepers. They in DRC Congo for over 20 years. They have come in Uganda to DRC and Uganda to keep peace. Their bases at the airport. And then they have failed to create peace. And now Uganda is going to Ukraine and Russia to create peace. They cannot allow.
So
they cannot allow. So this is just a try and error. They just see you. America itself can even if you had the capacity to do that, they would come back and ensure that they curtail you. They cannot allow you. Why? The war between Russia and Ukraine is not just the war between Russia and Ukraine. It's a war between Russia and America, and that war is supremacy war. It's about who is powerful in the world than the other. So America cannot allow these 5 African countries to go there and create peace. You are dealing with a complex matter that is a matter between supremacy war of the world, who is powerful between America, NATO, and Russia. So they cannot allow you. I want you to understand that America is the biggest beneficiary of this war. Russia is the second biggest beneficiary of this war in Ukraine. America is benefiting from this war. Therefore, America cannot allow you to create peace in Ukraine.
yeah, because like I did
Now,
say,
Zelensky has failed to realize one thing, that he's simply in the middle, being used by America to take care of its own interest. By the time he realizes it will be too late for him, his country will be plundered to zero, just like they have done in Congo, just like they have done everywhere in Libya. You have seen what America is doing in Libya, Afghanistan. By the time that war ends, Ukraine will be 98.8% poorer than they started. And America will not help it in any way, not even in weaponry. America knows that they cannot dare Russia. They know.
Because
and Russia has a point. Let me tell you, Russia has a point. This was previously USSR territory. They wanted to create NATO to weaken that, and they weakened it, USSR. Now, Russia remained powerful, even without that association. So, America is trying to go through NATO to go and install their weaponry in the neighbor of Russia, which is Ukraine. Russia told you, please do not extend eastwards. If you do so, there will be a problem.
That was even the arrangement. Remember when
And
Russia was getting from allowing South German.
Yes.
You remember the breaking of the Berlin Wall?
Yes. They agreed. They are simply not trying to violate that they agreed.
They were so packed.
You think Russia is stupid to accept? They will not accept. So, if they are going to use Ukraine, America and NATO to use Ukraine to go and start spying on Russia, Russia will not accept. It's like you, Mututa. If we're on a flat with Comrade Mugarama here, we're in a flat, and below my flat there is a rapist. Do you think I will sleep when my house has girls? You think I will sleep and I will allow your rapist to stay in our midst? No, I will not. I will do anything to ensure either this rapist is killed or is evacuated from there. So that's what Russia is trying to do. Now, blaming Russia without looking at the issues, and that's basically why Uganda, South Africa, and other countries remained neutral, because Museveni has started the real war between Ukraine and Russia. It is supremacy war.
Sure. Now, It comes in on the other point of the problems that Africa has today. We're having issues in Sudan, we're having issues in, we have just ended Sudan, we have ended with Congo. And like I said, now there is
resolve them?
even when we are trying to resolve by putting together the forces now, President Tshisekedi is saying the East African force seem to be collaborators with the M23.
Very good.
And then we are looking at resolving other people's problems.
Very good. Actually,
We must also understand.
Let me come just a minute. Actually, right now, Tshisekedi is regretting, even from the beginning, why he accepted this East African standby forces.
Yes.
It's a regrettable decision that he took. Because last night I was watching Kanofe's Courage. Last night, he said that it was clear from the onset that UPDF was not going to go into Congo to fight M23 rebels. He said it last night, that their mission was not to go there and fight M23. Yet, Tshisekedi's problem is M23. It's a rebel group. Yeah, so, if you are not going to help him to fight the rebel group, then what have you done? What have you gone there to do? Because he's not also helping us to fight our enemies. Who are there? Now, that's the argument.
This is
so what have you gone there to do? You have gone to support him?
What is clear? What is clear, and I think you can understand Comrade His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi's anguish, in the sense that as a young president in the sense that he has not really been in the presidency for such a long time, he is faced with a DRC that is a beehive of rebel activities. Rebel activities who also include 100 rebel groups. Yes, who also include the official rebels, in the sense that when you look at MONUC and MONUSCO, those forces have got nothing to do with the protection of the citizenry and also the peace and security as far as the presidency or the leadership in DRC is concerned. In my opinion, and I have said this, and I think I share these views with all people who choose not to think over the weekend, but think full time, that the so-called UN peacekeeping forces have been doing a lot of not keeping peace. Instead, they have been a panacea of creating chaos, because they have allowed anarchy to prevail in that part of the region, as the scavengers keep exploiting the minerals of DRC. But Felix Tshisekedi, His Excellency, thought and hoped and he has been scoring. You remember I said here that the visionary Tshisekedi allowed to expedite the process of getting into the East African community. That was fantastic, no doubt about it. Now, the East African community also has got a force, but it's not standby. What happens is that you can only go through the heads of states, you convince them, then they have got a right, they have a mandate to deploy, and this is what they did. But you see, when you get into any fighting zone, you must go there with very clear benchmarks. What are you going to do exactly? And this is our problem in Somalia. The only difference being that Uganda having the largest contingent there, and UPDF being UPDF, for them sometimes they go over and above what because you remember that Uganda is there, like the rest of the countries, is there on African Union mandate. And this, I think, is what you are asking, that why don't we have these countries, when we are talking about negotiations, why don't we have these 5 countries being mandated by African Union, so that we can have a platform, a larger and more respectable platform. But you see, of course, mediation is a different stuff altogether. I can understand also where you are coming from. Now, it is the mandate that was given to the deployment of the East African forces from various countries was not to engage the rebels. It was, and you see they were even deployed in different sectors, you know, that you are northern part, you are eastern part of this other, and don't go beyond that. Now this M23 is a very large force, and it is also getting external funding. Of course, we know the hypocrisy and the double standards of some of these guys around who operate on the African continent. It is also rumored, and I think that is why Rwanda, for instance, was not allowed to contribute forces, because the M23 is looked at least by Tshisekedi, as a force that is provided, created to start with, created, armed, trained, facilitated by Rwanda to overthrow the leadership or even create an independent state within DRC. That bit as it is. The mandate of the East African army contributing countries must change if, for instance, UPDF is to engage the M23. Because the M23 as rebels, they are not ordinary rebels. We know that they are at a level of sophistication. Because these are people, this is the kind of rebel outfit that overrun towns. They have that capacity of overrunning towns. They just last time, were they not overrunning Bunagana?
Yeah, Bunagana.
And everybody was campaigning.
Yeah.
So the point here is that the solution lies in establishment of standing forces.
But
to know,
are you saying that President Tshisekedi is not...
Is expecting too much. Is expecting too much from the East African contributing countries as far as the army is concerned, and yet that is not the kind of mandate that they have. If they had clearly given these armies an extra mandate of making sure that they got into all the suspected rebel areas and chase them away. I even don't know where these, anyway, that is another debate altogether. But the point I'm making is that the mandate of the armies from East African contributing countries must be extended. First of all, the mandate is for about 6 months. Yes. Now, what can you do within 6 months?
You can't do
now,
much.
it must be renewed. If it must be renewed, it doesn't matter, by the way, what you bring. You remember that we had an altercation at one time, even before the Tshisekedis. When we had the Kavira, during that time, you know, when we had a very serious confrontation with Zimbabwe, with Angola, in DRC, you see? And yet, if we had a standing force, the African stand force, for instance, or East African stand force, what would be happening is that we say we need to stabilize this country. What is happening in Khartoum, in Sudan, for instance? If we had Africa stand by force, it would be a very different story. We would go Africa stand by force, we say we have got a recognized government, at least be recognized as we wait for the elections. We secure the airport. We secure other installations of the country, that the nerve center of the country. And we say, as far as these ones are concerned, we do not allow anybody to come and fight from here. Then from there...
But now, the other bigger problem, of course, I think, which the administration of DRC need to know and to appreciate is that we have multiple outfits.
Within DRC?
Yes.
Those ones have not started yesterday. They have been there. When we were here, I told you, Ndugu and I shared with our viewers, that we have got Congo, now DRC, having been, historically speaking, carved out as a personal empire of King Leopold II. When he was done with it, and you know what he used to do, cutting the private parts of men for refusing to collect rubber. From there, then the supervisors would parade and say, this one refused, or he didn't collect the correct amount. He didn't bring the correct amount of rubber. So we, as a way of showing that we have dealt with him, they would parade the private. This is what we have cut. Now you can imagine that level of poverty. From there, when he had had enough of Congo, he handed it over to Belgium. From there, when we had got the semblance of organic leadership by way of introducing on the political scene the late Aimé Patrice Lumumba, he didn't leave. Because his speech was that he was going to make sure that he does the Maduro thing. Get the resources of DRC and make sure that he uses them to benefit the people.
That was
he was done away with.
That was
when he was done away with by the combination of Belgium and CIA, they introduced Wazabanga Koko Mobutu.
The stooge.
And we know what Mobutu did. The rest is, like we say, history. Then from there, we had the MONUC and MONUSCO.
Nduguru Garama, as we wind up on this thing. So you're thinking that to be able for Africa to take up a role in the international politics, Africa should have a clean plate.
Yes. You must first build local capacities and capabilities and internal cohesion so that when you go, you're able to convince the other people that we actually have the strength and what it takes to mediate you. And the other point is we must be very careful with whom we want to mediate. Because this is not about Ukraine and Russia. This is about America's interests. You know, Trump used to be very clear, and I elected Trump. I wish he comes back. They
will not allow him.
Trump used to be very clear. America's interest first. You take it or leave it. That's what he thinks. That's what he implements. These ones, Obama, Biden, and so on, they're trying to beat around the bush. But the fact is, in every situation, it's always America's interest first. DRC people, Congolese are here dying in their hundreds because of America's interest. Libya is going through what it is going through, people dying because of America's interests. Exactly. Sudan and South Sudan are dying every day because of what? America's interests.
And for me, I support them on that. And sometimes I've been telling ourselves, especially Africans, for example now, when should Africans, will there come that time when Africans are looking at Africa first, as we wind up on Nduguru Garama?
You see, I mentioned here, and I think I will repeat it for purposes of clarity, that the day we realize that these beautiful speeches we make, although they are important because we must constantly remind ourselves, the day we realize that we need another revolution. And this particular revolution, although we got rid of the physical colonial master on the African continent, we need a revolution of the mind, the ideological revolution. And this mindset change, which they call in humble English mindset change, the ideological revolution is not going to come overnight. It is through the kind of talks we make, it is through the kind of research, it is through the kind of engagements we make that we cease to look at African Union as just a barking dog or no dog at all. That we facilitate African Union because it is our responsibility to make sure that we fund it organically, but also we create think tanks and engage the enemy from all fronts. And we clear our mind that our enemy never left, he is still there, and he is now moving in very serious subterranean ways to make sure that he undoes what we have done over a time. We are not going to make any significant changes in our own lives, but we are going to keep lamenting.
Yes, that's true, unless that happens. And of course for Africa, we are already having a problem back at home, and which we have to address. Now, before we address other people's problems, I think it is also really important that we begin with what is back at home. First of all, to have that respect that we are able to handle our issues, then we can help others to handle that. When you are traveling, they say before you help another person, first secure yourself before you can secure some other person. Thank you so much, the audience who have been with us since we started this program, and until next Friday when we shall be back with another discussion. Thank you so much, panelists who have been with us, Ndugu Rugarama, Ndugu Irumba, who have been with us. We missed Takali Rachel, who I'm told is in Jinja attending to some other programs, but will be with us, I think, hopefully next week. Thank you. We'll keep in touch, and please keep watching UBC. More programs are coming up, so don't go away. Until then, thank you so much.